Joining us to debate this is Shaykh Yunus Dudhwala, who's head of chaplaincy at Bart's Health Trust. What is it, do you think, that this bill means to do, and what do you think its shortcomings might be?
The main point of this bill is trying to give patients a choice if they are terminally ill or they've been diagnosed as terminally ill and they've only got 6 months to live. And they want to give them the choice of dying and taking their own life in dignity according to what this bill is suggesting. And there's quite a few safeguards that they say is in the bill. Now, whether we agree with that or not, obviously there's going to be lots of debate. But I come from a hospital background. I've been a chaplain for over 25 years. And I've seen patients who have been given 2 months to live, and they've lived for 2 years. They've lived for 5 years. And I've got lots of concerns about how this bill is being rushed, number one. And number two, from an Islamic perspective, and we are very clear that life is sacred and it's not for anyone to take their own life. It is only God who can take a person's life. So we're very, very clear that this bill goes against our Islamic beliefs. But the other point, which is really, really important, is that in trying to give an individual dignity, I think we are opening up the doors for indignity for many, many people who are going to be seen as someone who can take their own life, but they become a burden upon us. So whether they are terminally ill, whether they are disabled, whether they are elderly, whether they are depressed, people will start to think, well, if these people can take their life, why aren't these people taking their lives?
Are we not already partly down this road? Because there are conditions in which patients are perhaps only able to survive by life support machines. They may not be even capable of making the decision themselves, as this act would require. That decision is now not always in the hands of the medical teams. It's kind of, if you like, already franchised back to the relatives or others. So aren't we in a certain sense already on what some regard as a slippery slope?
No, I think there's a huge difference between what this bill is proposing and what we have currently. So every doctor is trying to keep someone alive and trying to do the best towards their patients without thinking of taking them to the other side, taking them towards death. At the moment, if someone is extremely ill and the doctor is not able to help them survive, then they will let them go naturally. And that natural death is different to assisted death. So I think we can't compare both. And just a few points on what's been said already in terms of there's a really good collection of essays which has been collected by Professor Julian Hughes on the assisted dying subject. And I was with him on a panel yesterday, and he mentioned quite a few things which have been mentioned today. One which Jonathan mentions, he's saying that we're catching up with the rest of the world. But that's not true. 8 billion people live in this world. Only 300 or 400 million have access to assisted dying. The rest of them don't. So, we are with currently the majority way across the board. Secondly, today, if we open the doors to this category of people and, you put all these safeguards, etc., in 5 years' time, the 14-year-old depressed child, where we are currently in a teenagers being at the highest level of mental health, will ask, why not me? Why can't I have that choice? And many other categories will say why we cannot have that choice. And then, you have the quality of palliative care varies across the country. Why are we not trying to improve the quality of palliative care? Yeah. And at one point which the professor mentioned yesterday, and he's got a table in his book, which mentions that where you have opened the doors to assisted dying, the quality of palliative care has gone down. So at the moment, Britain is at the highest, number one, in that table. There's a table in his book, and he mentioned 4.1, I can't remember which page, but he said, look at the table. And quality of palliative care was the highest in Britain, and it will remain the highest if we don't allow this bill to come in. But where the bill has come in, the countries that had good palliative care have gone down the table. And that's what will happen to us as well. And then, as we said, it's a slippery slope.
Program's beginning to come to an end now, and I just want to give the other panelists here a last minute to kind of sum up. And I guess the point that we've reached in the discussion, and perhaps this would be a good place to get your views on this, is that context, as always, is king. And one person that might have a very supportive family, be in the very best of healthcare, might make one decision, and another person with equally painful diseases and an equally grim prognosis, friendless, familyless, in poor conditions, might make another. And Jonathan, that's certainly a imaginable circumstance. Yet, would it be right for them to make the decision on that? You've got a minute.
Yes, I mean, it's not an either-or situation. I'm 100% in favour of assisted dying, but also 100% in favour of palliative care. They should both go together, not one at the expense of the other. So certainly not assisted dying at the expense of palliative care, but also not the other way around, not saying, oh, just go for palliative care. And I know I'm in the minority in this discussion, and what everyone said is utterly valid for themselves, but it may not be valid for somebody else. And I think it's almost, if you don't mind me saying so, a little bit unkind to say, this is what I believe, and therefore this is what other people should believe. By all means, hold your own beliefs, just like I hold mine, but let's not lay the law down for other individuals. And we're not talking about politicians laying the law down either. All the politicians will be doing is giving people options. I think Asma herself had just shown that the life force within her, and all credit to Asma, is so great that she pulled through. And that's exactly what will happen, or what does happen right now. So It's only who want to utterly let go of life for whom this will apply. And I think they should have that right, that ability. And that's what this bill is about, giving people the autonomy. We all want a good life, and I'll end on this. We all want as good life as possible. I think we should have as good a death as possible.
Okay, Nadia.
Yes, I agree with Jonathan. We all want a good life and we all want as good a death as possible. I think that we need to ensure that we're not making changes which actually end up restricting other people's choices in order to, be able to deal with one set of circumstances. As I've said before, assisted dying is the wrong answer to the right question, which is how do we help people to live to the best of the degree till their final moments, and palliative care, when it's not being offered equitably, when access is poor and variable according to what age you are, what disease you are, what ethnic group you belong to, that's not choice, that's not fair choice. And so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Rajiv.
Thank you. I think for the reasons I've outlined, I think this bill is fatally flawed. It doesn't achieve what it seeks to achieve. The safeguards it has are not worth the paper they're written on. And these are not minor concerns that can be fixed in committee stage. I've worked in my time in government on lots of bills. Committee stage really only does tiny amendments. It doesn't do big surgery. And this bill, if one wanted it to be fit for purpose, would need really major surgery. So what I would urge members of parliament to do is to vote it down at second reading, not to let it go further. And I would urge viewers to write to the members of parliament asking to do so.
Okay. Shaykh Yunus.
I think patients who are in that condition, which the bill mentions, are fearful and vulnerable. And I don't, that in itself is very dangerous for them in terms of making a decision. And I think above all, sanctity of life should be at the top of any government, any society, to save life as best as possible. And I'll finish with, from a Muslim perspective, God says, "La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah does not burden anyone more than what they can bear. And we sometimes underestimate the resilience that we have. And these kind of opening doors will make them feel that we can go through this door instead of being resilient.
Well, thank you all very much. That is a difficult question, the most difficult question, a matter of life and death.